Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be looking at form state management, leading on to what we were doing with next and next auth. One of the things that we used was we created a basic form that we could submit new posts to, which was great. It has some disadvantages. React is one of those things that you have to do a lot of manipulation of the state per form element using the useState hook. There's abstractions away from that. There's like a Redux type of thing with Redux forms. The library I'm going to show you today is called Formik, and Formik creates a very simple API layer to handle form state management, as well as if you wanted to. It includes access to a library called Yup, not actually related to Formik, but it uses it for validation on top of Formik, so you can actually do really nice validation within your app. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to switch over and we can look at the documentation for Formik, install the things that we're going to need, and we're going to take the form that we currently have for setting a post, the title and the body, and actually make that required and valid, and use Formik on top of it. So down here at the bottom, we're going to stop our server. I'm going to scroll down, and you can see there is a few npm installation guides right here. We're using Yarn, so we're going to say yarn add Formik, and there's also another library called Yup that we'll add as well, and I can look that up for you real quick. So Yup GitHub, it's right here, and it's really just a simple wrapper around basically creating a schema to do validations on. So we're going to use both of those, so I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to install those, and then we can actually go to the getting started part right here. There's two different ways of using Formik. You can use Formik as just a wrapper component on top of things, or you can actually use useFormik, which is a hook. Either one works. We're going to probably use useFormik just because it looks nicer to me. So we're going to go ahead and copy this, take Formik, and just call it useFormik. And so then we can actually create this hook down here, say call it Formik. Is equal to useFormik, and then it takes pretty much the exact same things that are inside of here, so initial values. So we'll just go ahead and throw this here, say initial values, and so this is going to be an object. It's going to take in title and body, which will be our initial values. We're going to make that an empty string, as well as body is going to be an empty string. And so now we can get rid of these because we don't need them anymore. And so moving forward, we have validate and onSubmit. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the onSubmit and pass it in here, noticing that this is going to need to be that right there. And then I think, let's see, prettier. Let's see, we got that onSubmit. Oh, we probably don't need that or that. So there we go. We'll go ahead and alert the strings, set submitting to false, so you can see what's going on here. So the other couple things that we need to do is Formik also provides all of these attributes coming back from it. The same thing that you see right here with this Formik component is the exact same content that's exported from Formik directly. So I could destructure this if I want. I could do values. I could do whatever. So we're just going to come down here, and to our inputs, there's a couple things that we want to do. So first off, this onChange, we just want to do Formik.onChange. And for the most part, that's all you need to do right there. On top of that, though, or is it handle change? It might be handle change. Let's say handle change. There we go, handle change. You can also do onBlur and then the values. So let's go ahead and just do this and say Formik.values is going to be email, actually not email, title. And so if I save that, that should work. We also need, so the name's title. We can say type is just going to be text, just so it gets that information. So what Formik's doing under the hood, when it does this Formik.handleBlur and Formik.handleChange, and it's going to go off of this name value. So that's how it knows which values to change. So we can also just come down here, and then for all of these, we just need to say body here, and that should be good there. So I think from that, there's also, let's see, onSubmit. We don't really need this onSubmit anymore because it's going to be handled up there. So I can go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and take this because it'll be nice to have. I'm just going to go ahead and paste it there and then comment it out for now. And so let's go ahead and start our server back up. Let's go back to the terminal and say yarn dev to start the server back up. And then we should be able to refresh over here. I'm already logged in. There we go. And if I hit submit, probably still need to do, let's go back to Formik real quick. Formik, yeah, we need to pass in for that form. It'll be formik.handleSubmit. Let's try that again. All right, so you can see that it alerted out the content of both the title and the body, which is nothing. But if I type inside of here, you'll see that it'll alert out the correct title and body. So now you don't need to handle each individual state part of your form with the useState. We can actually remove this useState because it's no longer used anymore. And now you can use Formik for something like that. Now on top of that, one of the things that Formik gives you is pretty awesome is validation. So if I come up here and I say validation, we can go to the validation docs. And there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can do it manual validation like that, or you can do it via schema. We're going to do it via schema, so we can use yup for this. So if I come down here, we're going to say import all from yup, and that way we can do up here, we'll say const post schema. This name really doesn't matter, but it is going to be used later. So we're going to say yup.object, and we're going to say it's going to be a shape of, and then inside of here, we want to say that we're going to have title. And that is going to be a string, so yup.string, and that's going to be required, so .required. And whatever you put inside of here will be what it's actually going to message back as like the validation error. So I could say like required, and it'll be good for that. And then example for the body as well. You can do the same thing. So now for the post schema, we just want to come down here, and just like over here for the validation schema, we want to put validation schema is going to be post schema. So we should be good there. So what's going to happen now is if I refresh the screen and I hit submit, you'll see that nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. Why is nothing happening? Well, this on submit doesn't get triggered unless everything's valid. So we can actually remove this. I'll do that and then say, we'll just console.log the values out. So what we can do is down here I can say console.log Formik, so we can see what's happening behind the scenes. And let me go ahead and make this a little larger so you can see this. Oops, maybe too large. Okay, so we have these. This is basically what the Formik object you get back is. So you see dirty, errors. Errors is what we're really looking at. So if you look inside of here, now you see that the reason why that it's not submitted is there's errors on the page, body is required, and title is required. So if I like type inside of here and I scroll back down, you can kind of see that, okay, now there's only one error, body is required. So it requires both of them to be filled in because that's what we're saying in the validation schema. Well, one nice thing to do would be to say like put something down on the page to make sure that like, hey, this is required. So a little dirty hack we can do right here is we can just say like Formik.errors.title, and then should just be able to do, let's do this just in case. That way we know it's required. Let's put it in a span. And then same thing for the body down here. We're going to say body. And then let's do an asterisk. Actually, let's just do that. We can actually put the asterisk right up here if we wanted to. So I could say something like this. And so now if I refresh and I hit submit, you'll see, oh, those are required. So I need to actually, like, if I enter in there, they're not required anymore. It's already filled and you're good to go. So the next thing to do is basically just add our fetch API on top of this. So we already have values. So what we can do is uncomment this, take the values, and we'll just go ahead and put values right here. And we don't need that anymore. And we don't need the Formik. So right there, now we pretty much have the basics of how we would do form management with Formik. So I can type in here, test, test. Now there is something that you're noticing right there. When I type for the first time, it shows up. So there's some extra stuff that you can do right here. You can say validate on blur or on change or on mount. So we want to say validate on blur is true. Validate on change is false. So now if I refresh, So now whenever I blur out, you'll see that actually there's another thing we'll also need to do. We'll say validated on blur is true, so we don't need the other one. And then down here we want to say that ask if it's touched or not. So we can say Formik.touched is another field that it has, .title and we'll just do a safe navigation right there. And so now it'll only show up if it's actually touched. So I can see that, like, if I do that, you can see the top one's not actually changing. We can do the same thing down below for this. And so now, like, if I touch this one up here and I blur out, it's not going to actually hit this one down here. But the nice thing is when you hit submit, it touches all the fields. So you still get that required right there. We could also, if we wanted to, just say like style equals color red. Let's just do that. That way it stands out a little bit more. In a later video, we're going to get into styling, and we're going to use something called chakra, but that's just down the road. The next thing that we can do is we can actually export this post schema out. And you can actually use this on the server side if you wanted to. So now that we have that, we can come over here and I can actually just import that same post schema. So say you might want to put this in a common file later on down the road, but I can say import post schema from, and we're going to do ... Actually, let's do this. Yeah, ... pages, and then I think it's just the index page right now. So we'll just export that out from there so we can use post schema in here. And so what we can do there is we already have these values. So instead of doing the validation error there, what we can do is basically you can say post schema. If I look at the docs for Yup, you can actually see how this works. So I can say is valid .then, so I can basically just take this schema, post schema is valid, and then I can pass in this body, and it would let me know if it's valid or not. We can just do it here, and then we can actually, if we wanted to, is this already async await? Yeah, it is. So I can say basically await post schema is valid. Const valid is equal to, so let's see what this gives us. Console.log valid, and we should be able to test this out. You should see the console log down below. Now the thing is right now we can't on the client side submit this form without values, but I could kind of fake it. So I'm just going to go ahead and basically say right here, those are my values. So if I hit submit here, let's see. Let's see. We have to type something in. Oh, let me sign back in. All right, so we type something in, hit submit. You'll see, okay, already 10 Prisma clients are actually running. Post schema is not a function. Let's see. Let's make sure we're exporting from the right thing. So we have index right there. You know what? For simplicity's sake, I'll clean this up later, but I just want to, actually, it's okay. All right. So it looks like it's just up one. So let's go back to posts and we'll set a import from index. Let's do that. And then we'll restart that. All right. So test, submit. Post schema is not found. Prisma. Oh, it needs to be out of page. Yeah, it's out of pages. Out of API. That's saved. export cons post schema. I am just going to go ahead and paste this over for now. I'll figure that out before I post the commit for this. So let's just do this. And then I hit submit. Yep, it's not required, not found. So let's import yep. And then submit. This post schema is not a function. Let's go back to the validation. Oh, schema is not actually, okay. You know what? So that probably worked previously. I just need to do this. There we go. Ah, there we go. So false. So it's not. Okay, so there we go. So now you can basically use the same schema for both. So it's not valid. So if this is not valid, then return that error, validation error. And you could probably get a little bit more predefined with this. Like you could probably get back the validation error itself. So there's valid right there, true or false, but there's probably a way inside of here, validate catch, so you can get the errors itself if you wanted to. We're not going to do this in this video, but this is a really nice way to actually do validation on the client side and use that same validation step on the server side for the same validation schema that you want to use. If this video helped you, don't forget to hit the subscription button, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.